The Justice Department issuing clear guidelines to states accused of violating people's right to freedom of religion in response to COVID-19.
Attorney General William Barr issuing this response to a case in Mississippi where worshipers were ticketed for attending a church service in their cars. Barr saying, quote, "The facts alleged in the complaint strongly suggest that the city's actions target religious conduct." The Attorney General also went on to say that the government may not impose special restrictions on religious activity that do not also apply to similar non-religious activity.
Yeah, a lot of questions about that. Joining us now is David Pietro. He is a constitutional attorney. Good to see you this morning. I want to dive right into it. Does the Attorney General's guidance that we just read settle this issue, or do you expect states to continue this overreach we've seen?
Well, I think the Attorney General Barr was spot on. All of our rights are not absolute rights. The right to free speech doesn't allow you to go into a movie theater and scream fire. So there's always a balancing act between our rights and where our rights can infringe on other people's rights. So we're dealing with COVID-19. So obviously interacting with other people can affect the population as a whole. So there's a balancing act. But what was happening in Mississippi, where the Attorney General was spot on, is they were allowing other gatherings of similar, like going to a drive-through for food, a similar situation. They were treating that differently, i.e. equal protection, than they were treating the churches. So they were interfering with the right to practice one's religion when the guidelines were when the religious organization was within the guidelines promulgated by the state. So the state was, or the city was, treating the religious institution unfairly as compared to other institutions. So making it why that statement of interest was filed by the Department of Justice and them intervening, because they wanted to make the point that, yes, you can balance rights, but you can't treat one group differently than the other. And in particular, when it's a religious organization, which has a special right under our U.S. Constitution.
Right. Clearly we were seeing the cars spread out from each other. These people were staying in their cars. They weren't interacting with each other. So your argument, of course, is very fair. But is there a time, David, when, people might have to sacrifice some of their constitutional rights during, like we might say, a pandemic right now? What's that point?
It's already happening. It's like, I live down in Florida. When we have hurricanes, they institute curfews, because what happens is the public interest now starts to outweigh your private interest. So after a hurricane, we don't want people looting. So that interest of the general public allows the government for a temporary period of time to restrict your right to travel outside of your home during certain hours so that the general public is protected. So all of our rights under the Constitution are a balancing act. They're not absolute. No one has an absolute right to anything, but they are rights, and the government and judges need to decide where does that pendulum swing, and where is the government now going too far. So under times of crisis, and this is actually when we need to be most concerned. Under times of crisis, when rights are taken away, sometimes justifiably and sometimes wrongly. And it's times of crisis that you need to fight for your constitutional rights, because that's the time when it can really be usurped and taken away. And we should all be proud of our constitutional rights and fight for that balance. There's nothing wrong with that, even in a pandemic time, to fight for what your rights are.
All right, I have a lot more questions for you, but I guess we ran out of time. It's David Pietro, a constitutional attorney. Good to see you. Thank you for your time, sir.